It's a new week on the Just Baseball show, and we are in a post GM episode world now. That was like the last month, and we got
Yeah.
done playing GM for everybody, which is good though. And we had a conversation about it via text. Aram Layton, by the way, I'm Jack. This is the Just Baseball show. Monday, January 22nd, as always, brought to you by BetMGM. We're going to talk Zips projections today for the National League. But before we get into that, some really nice notes on social media, whether it be from YouTube or on Instagram or on Twitter. People really like the layered aspect of the GM episodes, I think.
Yeah, which is cool. And I really always appreciate the feedback. And like if there's something that you want to see more of or a little bit maybe less of, if you say it really nice,
Unless it's a
we appreciate the
person.
feedback.
Like if you
Yeah.
say, hey, I want to see less Peter, like you can't do that.
No, you can't do that.
Can't
Unless
do
you
it.
say you want to see less Aram, then that's fine. I'll
Right.
disappear. No, but like, if there's certain things that, you want us to cover, or things that you like, we're always spitballing. It's an off season's 3 days a week, but mostly it's a 5 day a week show. Like we're always looking for the stuff that is most interesting and plays the best. So the YouTube comments are always helpful, but Twitter, we saw some responses there. And the GM thing was an idea we had, 2 off seasons ago, and it's been really cool to see it kind of take off. And I think we're really fortunate that we have the layers of like, Peter being able to talk about, the betting side and what kind of the public thinks and what the expectation is. And then, you're able to kind of combine the contracts and the context of every team's financial situation. Then I can also talk about the implications of the farm system. And it's been, we didn't know it was going to go that way, but it's cool that it's layered that way. And, I really appreciate the feedback because we didn't know if people would like it or not. And, it seems like you mentioned, people enjoy it. So it's something we'll continue to do. I know that all our trades won't be favorites with every team, but like we're doing
Right.
30 teams here. We can't strike perfect deals for everybody, but I think it does help at least kind of provide context of the state of a franchise, but like both from top to bottom, right? Where you're at financially, where you're at as a big league team, and then where your farm system's at and how you should approach based on that as well. So that's always fun, and we're always looking for ideas too. So appreciate the feedback and the conversation, and it's always fun.
Yeah, we'll do that series every offseason moving forward unless we hear enough people say, oh my God, that sucked. Never do that
Get
again,
out of here.
please. That was originally a lockout idea. It was dead middle of the lockout. What do we want to do? We want to put Brad Boxberger on every single freaking team on the face
Someone
of
had to
the
do
earth.
it.
Yeah, so that is really cool, and I love how it is developed. Something we did last year that I'm excited to do again is take a look at the Zips projections, and this is such a unique beast, and that's what we're going to do today. I'll give you the whole rundown of like what Zips projections are before we get into it. We're going to do the National League today. We're going to do the American League on Wednesday. Peter will be back for that one. Before that, though, I saw something in regards to Spencer Dinwiddie with the Brooklyn Nets, and I was trying to figure out a baseball comp to it. Dinwiddie has just disappeared for
Mhm.
Brooklyn. Like he's not taking shots. It was like 2 points and 3 points. And I saw Zach Lowe wrote an article on ESPN Plus. Great writer, Zach Lowe. And he said he's playing like he's on strike. And that led a lot of people to kind of run with the idea that he's almost not putting effort in an attempt to get traded. And I know that like that was the Harden thing. And now you got somebody like Spencer Dinwiddie doing it. So I tried to think of a comp for that. And my baseball comp that I got to is like Marcus Stroman on the Cubs last year.
But
If he was like,
he wanted to stay, I felt like.
did he want to stay?
He did. So like
He did.
he did want to stay, and he pitched his butt off. I think he got hurt. I My best comp, but he knows he's not getting traded, would be Anthony Rendon. Like
Rendon,
that guy's
yeah.
doing everything possible.
Did you see,
But
by the way, the clip that he had? He was a guest on like a talk radio show or something, and he was asked, "What's the one thing you would change about the big league season?" And he's like, "It's too damn long." It's like, oh my God, you hate it here,
that's lean. Like at that point, like you already know that the narrative around you, like that's the one answer you shouldn't give,
right?
even if you think it.
I want to play less.
I want to play. You already don't play.
Okay, here's one for you. Obviously, Milwaukee has pissed off Corbin Burns. So Burns likely to walk this year, even if he, gets traded or not. He's not going back to Milwaukee. It seems he's going to go get his bag elsewhere. The way that I kind of viewed it was like, if Corbin Burns one day was like, you know what, I'm pissed. I'm just going to go out and get bombed. That
It's
just doesn't happen in our game.
it's a basketball issue for sure. I mean, there's a reason why the NBA has to have a rule where it's like, you can't rest two stars or whatever, like, per game. It's like it's a crazy, bizarre thing that they have going on there. And With baseball though, I do think that there is the parallel would be, there is a level of buy-in that you sometimes don't get from certain players based on, the competitiveness of the team or lack thereof, based on where the player's at in their situation in general. And like, I don't think that there's like for a lot of these players, I don't know if it's a lack of buy-in totally, but you're not getting that extra buy-in.
Yeah.
And with Burns, I wonder if he was kind of frustrated through the first parts of the season because he wasn't, as sharp at points, and then really started to settle in and had a nice year overall. But I think you're going to see a different Corbin Burns in 24 because he's going to go get his bag. But in 23, he's kind of, it's before the contract
Right.
year. They had the arbitration thing piss him off. He still played well and, was a professional of all professionals. But I do think he's going to be better this year, not from the classical contract year thing, but I think it's that on steroids because he was aggravated last year. They didn't really add anything of major substance. And then, he's still 2 years away from getting paid. So
Yeah.
now I think he's going to just walk in, say, this is my chance to get paid after this, I'm out of here after this year. And I bet you he's right back to the Cy Young contention this year. So that would be an example of it with baseball. But for baseball, I don't think you ever have guys check out. You can't do baseball halfway.
No.
So you really just have the guys that are either dumb locked in, like crazy locked in, or not as much as they usually are. And I think that's what you get. I think more with baseball.
And building onto that, baseball is one where, yes, like you can't do it halfway, especially pitching. Like you cannot half-ass on the mound. Like you are out there giving full
No,
effort because that is what you've trained to do. But the other aspect is, okay, even if you're not totally invested in the team situation around you, and all the best pitchers, all the best hitters are invested in the team situation around them, you can still play for yourself. Like
yeah,
baseball is an individual sport played as a team, or a team sport played by individuals. And I just think anybody that like hits that level of frustration where they're thinking about no effort, just shift your focus to, well,
yeah.
I'm just going to go get paid.
Go get your numbers. Go get your
Right.
numbers.
Go get my
And
numbers.
it's interesting. You see players pop certain seasons and things like that. And I do think some of that has to do with that. And I also think the last thing I'll say on it is preparation too, right? The more bought in you are, the more you're going to be diving into the scouting reports before you play guys. The more you're going to be focused on executing those scouting reports and things like that. And again, I think for that reason, I think Burns is going to be back to like Cy Young Burns this year.
For sure. And we're not trying to throw Corbin Burns under the bus here at all because we
No,
have no idea if
no,
he was lacking buy-in at all in 2023. We're just trying to figure out like what scenario could be a comp to this, but we are throwing
it's
Spencer
rare in
Dinwiddie
baseball.
under the bus. Yeah, like it's just not possible in baseball. We're gonna get into the zip stuff, and I'm excited to do this. We have some like team related articles that will be live on Just Baseball early this week. There was a really nice one at the end of last week from Renee Deckard on the
Mhm.
Rockies Zips projections. And I'll actually read verbatim the MLB.com glossary definition of Zips projections. Zips is a system of player projections developed by Fangraph's Dan Zimborski when he was at Baseball Think Factory. According to a Q&A on the Baseball Think Factory website, Zips uses growth and decline curves based on player type to find trends. It then factors those trends into the past performance of those players to come up with projections. The system uses stats from the previous 4 years for players from ages 24 to 38. It weighs more recent seasons heavier. So for younger or older players, younger than 24, older than 38, it uses weighted statistics from only the previous 3 years. System also factors velocity, injury data, and play-by-play data into its equations. Like other projection systems, Zips uses past performance and aging trends to develop a future projection for players. On Fangraphs, the projections are updated daily and project each player's numbers over the course of the remainder of the season. Obviously, they are predictions, they are projections, so they're not going to be perfect, but they do a good job of tying a bow on what happened in 23, factoring in the last couple of years, and it is the best forecaster that I think we have. But the beauty of baseball is forecasters aren't right, and
No.
there are always some weird wrinkles in the forecast that we want to point out. So I went through every NL Zips projection, and I found some shit that I'm going to point out, and I know you're going to point some stuff out along the way.
Yeah, so I think it's fun because look, it gives you something to talk about, in terms of what some of the expectations might be. We talk about sports books and like what the MGM odds are and why we might think that's unique or surprising or whatever it may be. But there's a lot, as you just kind of detailed, there's a lot that goes into these different outcomes, but it also shows you the volatility of certain players, because there's certain players who have, and I always talk about this with prospects, and it's tough to rank certain prospects because there's guys that, may have a higher 50th percentile outcome, a median outcome, but they might, I think that makes them safer and maybe a better prospect than somebody else. But the 80th percentile outcome could be a lot higher for a lesser prospect, meaning the ceiling's higher, but the floor is lower. So
Right.
I think you can see the big league example of this with the percentile outcomes that they have with guys. And then sometimes just it's it's out there and you're like, whoa, why are they so high or so low on this guy? But then it's a fun conversation to try to understand the perspective there. Also, while you were reading that, I thought of a better example. Even though he was struggling, I do think that it's part of the way everything went down. He kind of was almost protesting to a degree of his situation. Alek Manoah. Alek
Good
Manoah would be the
examples.
perfect Dinwiddie comp. I mean, if Manoah was bought in and focused on getting back to where he wanted to be, I doubt that things go totally the way that they went. So I would say
Right.
Manoah would probably be the best example of that, and the way that things went last year.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because it almost felt like things spiraled on him on the field. Things spiraled on him because he was so frustrated in what was happening. Maybe same thing with Tim Anderson, if we're being totally honest, right? Like
Yeah,
Tim
he's way better
Anderson.
than what he did. Come on, he's a
Right,
better baseball
exactly.
player.
So I'm just thinking about guys that like are clearly more talented than the product that they put out, and anybody watching baseball can see that. And
Yeah,
that's what Dinwiddie was doing with the Nets. I think that might be what happened with Tim Anderson. And I know he was hurt. I know he was dealing with a bunch of off the
and
field
also that
stuff.
team was just
It was
miserable.
bad. And it was a fractured clubhouse and all that. Like Manoa, another good example. All right, I want to jump in with kind of a bang here, and I'm just going to point out like the odd wrinkles in this. And if you want to check it out, I'll link the Braves projections, that blog from Dan Zaborski on Fangraphs in the episode description, and you can click around team by team from there and check this out. So you can almost like follow along with us. Before we get into it, this is never, ever, ever an indictment on Dan. What Dan did with the Zips projections is a godsend for baseball fans. They love it. This is not his opinion. He did not formulate Ronald Acuna Jr.'s 20th percentile WAR outcome based on opinion. He created an algorithm. This is what the algorithm spit out. The other thing, I mentioned players along similar lines in terms of age, position is best too. In each article, each player, it is linked the three most similar players from what you pull from. And like a good example is Juan Soto, his near age offensive comps, how they're branded. Rusty Staub, who was a 6-time All-Star, Mel Ott, Carl Yastrzemski. It tells you that that guy's like on a Hall of Fame track. But Manny Machado, for example, Mike Lowell and Aramis Ramirez. Makes a ton of sense. Those guys around 30 were some of the best in the league. They were not the best in the league. Machado is probably 4 or 5. Lowell and Aramis were probably 4 or 5 in the respective years.
Yeah, it's fun. I love the player production comps because it's just so many names I haven't seen in so long or
Right.
haven't ever even heard that are so funny. So that part's really cool to kind of fly through too.
Do you have Ken Palm? Ken
I
Pomeroy?
did in the past. I did.
I can give you my login if you want. But Ken Palm, it's great because you go to each player's like player page and it says similar seasons. Like if you go to Zach Eady, it's similar seasons and it's probably like Anthony Davis and whoever.
Shaquille
Like
O'Neal at LSU. Like
exactly like that kind of thing. You get the comp underneath, which is what we see here. So again, thank you so much to Dan Szymborski for doing this in the early 2000s. And this is a really fun exercise for us. But I want to jump in with Atlanta. I've got a hitting note and a pitching note. First one is from the unanimous MVP last year, Ronald Acuna Jr. It has to do with his projected WAR. He's projected 7.3 FWAR this year by Zips, but you go to his 80th percentile outcome this year, and that's a 9.3 WAR. His 20th percentile outcome, which is, like, hey, this was an objectively down year for Ronald Acuna Jr., is 5.4 WAR. Can we
that part's
expect
crazy.
that? That is crazy.
So I think the 80th percentile makes a ton of sense. Like he's capable of a 10-win season. If Mookie Betts can have a 10-win season in different ways, but Ronald Acuna Jr. can have a 10-win season. He could have probably close to an 11. But and it depends on again the defensive side of things. So I think that's where he gets docked a little bit. But the 20th percentile being 5.4 is mind numbing. And maybe that's
Yeah.
fair. Like maybe it's that high of a likelihood that he's at least at 7, but that's just crazy to me. It's just an example of how much of an outlier he is in so many of the different categories that, Zips kind of sorts through, and how absurd he is.
So my thing is, if he was platinum glove level defensively, I would understand that 5.4 number. But he clearly has flaws defensively, and hey, that might be buy-in because he's so clearly talented. But like that was the one knock on him this past year. It's, oh, I wish this guy was a better defender. I just wonder in a game as volatile as baseball, if he sucks for 6 weeks offensively, and he's probably too good to suck, but if he does, like, how are we projecting a 5.5 win season for a guy who goes through a slump?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing too, is because like, you got a slash line last year of 337, 416, 596, right? And like 41 bombs, 73 bags. That's an 8.3 WAR season. If the defense is the same, how much better can he possibly be offensively? And if the defense is not better, I feel like a 20th percentile outcome would be worse than that, but who
Right.
knows? I like, it's one of those things where it's really fun to just like see where they're at, but it also is a reminder of just how absurd his season was last year. And if he played semi decent defense, he could probably flirt with like a 12 WAR if he
Yeah.
really put the numbers that he put together, offensively. So it's gonna be fun. I really hope that he defends better, because I want to see what that all looks like from a cumulative WAR standpoint. But I do think the reason why the systems love him so much is we're talking about a guy who cut his K rate by more than in half, right? Like he had a 24% K rate in 2022, cut it to 11.4. I mean, so you wonder how that just continues to manifest itself as he blossoms, and he's going into his age 26 season. So he might not be even hitting his peak yet, which means he could end up being, one of the best players to ever do this thing. So I think anything is within reason with Ronald Acuna Jr. in projections.
So since 1927, there has been one 12-win season. Do you know who that 12-win season is? Like Babe Ruth had a 14-win season, a 13-win season, and a
Can you
12 and a
give me
half win
like
season.
the year, like the decade?
Yeah, if I give you the year, I think it's going to give it away. Rogers Hornsby, by the way, had a 12-win season in 1924. Were you going to get that? This one happened in the 60s.
60s. Was it Mays?
No, mid to late 60s American League.
Mid to late 60s American League.
He was the last guy to do something for a very long time.
Oh, was it Yaz?
It was Yaz.
Wow.
Yaz's Triple Crown season in 67 was a 12.4 win season. And we're talking about Acuna having the 12-win season ability. Otani, before he got hurt, was tracking for a 12-win season.
Yeah. He's got a little bit of an edge there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
I found that interesting. All right. By the way, Acuna projected 43 homers, 116 driven in, and 51 bags. Holy shit. That's a projection.
That's a projection.
That's not a dream. That's like a projection. Wow. Shout out baseball. All right. If Spencer Strider is projected to have a 3.28 ERA, what is Max Fried's projected ERA?
It's got to be lower.
3.27. 1/100th lower than Strider. I will say Strider is projected 30 more innings and over 100 more punchouts. I think we're past the point in thinking that Fried is better than Strider. Strider is a better pitcher than Max Fried.
Yeah, at this point, at this stage, 100%. And like, yeah, the ERA aspect's interesting. I think Strider's going to figure that out. A 3.28 ERA for Strider this year with how many whiffs he's going to get, and everything. Like,
Cy Young.
he's a Cy Young contender. Once the ERA got over 3.5, you just couldn't justify it anymore.
Yeah.
But when you have all the underlying data the way it is, if he gets to the low threes, I think it's Cy Young season.
Which is crazy. I think we're in a new frontier because if, even 5 years ago, if a guy was over 3, they're probably not winning the Cy Young, right?
Yeah.
Like you have
No,
to be sub 3. But
not if
now
anyone's
it's
sub 3. Yeah, no way.
right. But now you got to be sub 3.5 if you're racking up the punch outs and yada, yada, yada. All right. Your Marlins. There are
I
4.
actually had one outlier real quick though that I think, or not outlier, but one that I do like strongly disagree with is Bryce Elder. I don't think Bryce
Yeah.
Elder's giving you 160 innings of, what did they have him at? I
Like
was
a
just
low
looking at the
fours.
WAR.
I think it
Well,
was a low fours.
Yeah, it was 4-2. I guess that's honestly fair. I don't even know if he's gonna give you 160 innings of that though.
So I'm thinking it's so situational. And the thing is, like, they project in a vacuum for all of these guys. They don't go situationally. So Elder is projected 160 innings. AJ Smith Shawver is projected 100 innings. Now, there's not 267 innings to really be had between those two, I don't think, if everybody else stays healthy, and they project that everybody else stays healthy. Like,
Yeah,
they count more than 162 starts, I want to say. So like AJ Smith Shawver's projected 100 innings of a 4.5 ERA, Elder
fair enough.
160 innings of a low fours ERA. I will say, just like getting this out there right now, I'd rather watch AJ Smith Shawver pitch
I
than
was
him.
gonna say, I think that's a low end estimate for Smith Shawver. I think he's gotten unfairly docked, as we've talked about, based on how much he was rushed. But yeah, we're gonna get to the Marlins now. We can't wait.
4 2-win seasons projected. There are four guys above 2.0 F4. Who are they?
Okay, I'm not looking. So Jazz,
Yeah,
Arias,
yeah,
they're just position players.
just position players.
Jazz, Arias, Berger,
Yeah,
and you said four.
yeah.
I,
It's like a BuzzFeed headline. The last one will shock you.
it's not Jesus Sanchez. I probably hate it. They probably got him at like 1-7.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
Jesus.
John Birdie.
Nope.
That's disrespectful. He will guaranteed have a 2-win season. Um, Xavier Edwards.
Xavier Edwards is the
Dang, I had a
fourth.
feeling it was gonna love his numbers. Oh yeah.
Arise is the projected best in terms of WAR output among position players at a 2.5 win season, a projected 316 batting average. I'll take the over.
Yeah, holy crap, I'll take the over.
I'll take
Uh
the over.
that so I won't pull it up if you want to ask me another trivia on the pitching side, but I will
Oh,
say John Birdie needs some more respect on his name. How much more does this guy need to prove that he's just a consistent, couple win player like every single year. I feel like he's a lock for two. He's 2.2 WAR in 2022, 2.1 WAR in 2023. And again, I just think he's just continuing to get better, which is weird. He's like 34, but I'm a big Birdie guy.
I love it. All right, I'm pulling up the pitching now. Okay. Who's got a better projected ERA, Luzardo or Yuri Perez?
Oof. That's a great question. I'm gonna say Yuri. Or sorry, no, I'm sorry. I'm gonna say Lizardo.
So Yuri is 25 points better. Yuri's a projected 363 in 124 innings. Luzardo's a projected 388 in
Really?
153. I just want to say, I think 124 innings at a 3.6 is pretty perfect for Yuri Perez. I think the ERA can be lower. I think he can be at like a 3.2 or a 3.3, honestly, because I think he's super talented. But 124 innings is a super fair
Yeah,
estimate.
he's not a finished product yet. I think there's gonna be some blips, and yeah, I do think that's pretty reasonable.
All right. Projected WAR for Luzardo.
Well, knowing that those are the numbers, the
Pitcher
underlying,
WAR is weird.
I'm gonna say 3.2.
2.6.
Okay, that's disrespectful. He's gonna be better than that.
It's just kind of a weird one. All right. Projected ERA. They've got Anthony Maldonado at 3.78. I love Maldonado. How
He's
about
bad.
AJ Puck? What do you think they have, Matt?
They better have him at like a 4.2.
Yeah, 3.7.
That's fair. He ends up backing into that.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Jumping over to the Mets. I just want to give you some context. Pete Alonso, per 162 games, pluck this from Baseball Reference. I love the per 162 thing for some of the best in baseball. And one of my favorite guys to look at in that regard is Manny Ramirez. Manny Ramirez was so much better than I think you may remember him as. Like, that guy's numbers per 162 were insane. Pete Alonso per 162 in his career, another guy way better than you may think he is. 251 with 45 homers and 118 driven in per 162. In his walk year, Zips projects a 252 clip with 40 homers and 115 driven in. If that's not a $200 million first baseman, he's going to be 29 years old. If this cat gives you 40 and 115 and has an 880 OPS, I'm
Doesn't
giving him
strike out.
no, doesn't punch out like a 15% K rate. I'm giving Pete Alonso $200 million and I'm not losing sleep.
I don't know why the Mets haven't done it already. That's one of the weirder things, especially considering, where Cohen's at, and as a fan, and also I know he wants to win, but like that's a big part of this Mets franchise, and Pete Alonso is going to age well. I think that was an interesting situation. I'm very surprised, but it seems like Zips likes Jeff McNeil a little bit more this year. I think to bounce back a little bit. It
They
seems
do.
like.
They do. Do you like Jeff McNeil to bounce back?
I do. I think he's just got this like every other year thing going on now. That's interesting, but he seems to find it and be fine. I think they're underselling Francisco Alvarez a little bit with his 80th percentile. I think the 80th they've got him at 3.7 F4 in his 80th
Oh,
percentile outcome with the kind of power that he has and what we've already seen from him, and the fact that the glove is already good
it's
too.
good.
Um, I think his 80th percentile outcomes 5+ wins. To be honest,
It's
I
William
think his
Contreras this year.
I think his 60th percentile outcome is like 3.7. Personally, I think his 80th percentile is closer to like four and change. I would say then 4.5, something around there.
I love that you're high on Alvarez because I'm really high on Alvarez.
He's
And
gonna have a big year.
I think Alvarez and Gabby Moreno are linked up at this point now.
And so it's such different profiles though, which makes it fun, but very
Mhm.
similar in terms of their value and talent and abilities in terms of like, what
Yeah.
they in terms of what value you get when you look back at WAR and production and all those good things.
And they start their ascension at the same time, like with everything we wanted in regards to the luck RG3 thing, like we can get that at the catching position in Alvarez and Gabby Moreno. Uh, Zips loves Mike Vassell, which is interesting for the Mets, and that's a unique niche name. Mike Vassell, 110 projected innings at a 4.4.
Mhm.
That would be a nice depth arm to have kind of blossom for the Mets.
Well, and I think with this team where they're at, I do think we've talked about it, like play the kids when we're talking about the New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see these guys throw. They've also got, some other youngsters and like Christian Scott, really good fastball, like big whiff there. Like, I want to see what he can do up there. I want to see what some of these dudes can do. But Blade Tidwell, even at some point, I'd like to see him get a crack. But yeah, it was cool to see how much they like Vassell, and I do think that the Arsenal will kind of translate. He's got a good mix of pitches. He's been effective at the upper minors. I think that's a really, really good number there for him, and I think he could do that.
What do you think Edwin Diaz's projected K rate is?
I, I would say like percentage wise, 32.
40.
Shut up.
39.7%.
Gosh,
They have like
I
89
didn't know they
punch
ran
outs.
it up that high for like projections. Oh
Dude,
my
I
God.
mean, Acuna. Acuna is like a
Yeah, that's fair
projected
enough. Holy
Carl
crap.
Yastrzemski.
I mean, I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I think his arm's going to be fresh. I
Yeah,
think he's going to feel good. Hopefully, that is the landing knee, so hopefully, he feels good. But if his arm is fresh, holy crap,
ridiculous.
it's gonna be scary.
So good. One more in the National League East. Nick Castellanos projects at a lower WAR, and we know that Schwarber and Castellanos are not WAR accumulators, but I thought this was hilarious. Nick Castellanos projects at a lower WAR than Jake Cave, Weston Wilson, Drew Ellis, Cody Clemens, Esteban Quiros, Cal Stevenson, Otto Kemp, and Rafael Marchand. Zero point 0.5 F4.
Who's Otto Kemp?
I don't know. We're on Zips. I'm gonna look
Nick
up this
Podkul. Nick Podkul is actually having a nice year.
Otto
Unfortunately,
Kemp.
he's putting
Yeah,
up numbers and trips. He's ahead of Castellanos too. He got hit in the head with a pitch, I believe, or got hit somewhere and it cut the season short. He put up numbers last year though, so look out for Nick Podkul.
no way. Otto Kemp's a real guy. He went to Point Loma Nazarene, which I think is D3, and he played 78 games in low A, 31 games in high A, and had a 736 OPS.
And that's
And
projected.
and Zip spit out a higher projected WAR for him than $20 million Nick Castellanos.
That is crazy. It is nuts having Schwarber and Castellanos on the same ball club. But again, we know Dombrowski prioritizes some other things, and it works. It's, I mean, he's won championships for a reason.
Yeah.
We've eaten crow on our Dombrowski takes, but um, looking at it, I'm trying to see one that like really stands out. I think it's pretty spot on. If anything, I think it's underselling Brandon Marsh, who made a lot of great strides last year, and really looked good offensively, and should get some more run in center this year. 2.7 WAR for his 80th percentile? No way.
No way.
I disagree with that one for sure.
I also think they're lowballing Harper. Do you see what his projected WAR? Like
4.8.
50th
Yeah,
percentile. That's 80th.
that's
50th
eight.
is
Oh,
3.6.
he's gonna play
Turner is
first. He's gonna
4.8.
play good first.
That's the thing. Like they may just Zips may not be able to factor in that Harper's going to play a good defensive first base because he really how many
Yeah.
appearances in his career does he have at first base?
But even at DH, I figured he'd be a little higher than that. But yeah, if he's at first base and he's playing, because he's gonna play good defensive first base, I'd bet a lot of money he's positive in all the metrics.
I'll go even farther. I'm not going to have my jaw on the floor if this cat wins a Gold Glove at first
No,
base this year.
not at all.
It could be very Tatis.
I was a catcher coming up, man. He's an athlete. Like
Right.
it's one thing to not be able to like get great jumps and grade as like a great OAA guy in the outfield, but it's another thing to just be fundamentally sound, have soft hands and good instincts, and just be a good first baseman, which I think he's going to be.
Right. There are going to be so many plays where he's just like, how much you want to bet within the first 2 months of the season, he's going to have one of those like flying over the dugout railing, make a catch plays.
Oh, for sure. Like some over the
Absolutely.
shoulder grab too in foul territory. We'll get them all.
Absolutely. We'll get one. All right. We're going to jump through the NL Central and the NL West to wrap up the Zips projections for the National League. Start with the Cubbies, the kind of Cubbies. Cody Bellinger, kind of a Cub, kind of not yet. Cody Bellinger is a projected 108 OPS plus. And for context, that's slightly better than Dansby Swanson's 104 and Nico Horner's 98, but it's lower than Ian Happ's 112. It's lower than Michael Bush's 111.
Yeah.
And it's way lower than Seiya Suzuki's 124.
I
I
agree with that though, actually.
I love that Zips is high on Seiya Suzuki. I think that this guy's due for like that big year. And he's been disappointing, relatively speaking, because of the money, because they were expecting him to be the alpha. He's a really good second or third bat in your lineup. They probably just asked him to be the best run producer, even with like the expectations for Bellinger and how they kind of shifted through the first couple of months of last year. But I think Seiya is going to be awesome. I was just shocked that the Bellinger OPS plus is that low, but then you remember it factors in the previous 3 years. Obviously,
Yeah.
it weighs the last one even more, but the previous 3 years, not good.
I think it's a pretty reasonable number because hey, this is the hardest guy. No one knows, and that's why he's still a free agent. It's part of the reason why, and Boris is the other part. But no one quite knows where it's going to be after moving forward, and there's some underlying batted ball data aspects that people have some concerns about and things like that. But I honestly think I wouldn't have been shocked if it docked him even more based on some of the struggles in the past and the underlying metrics going into or in last year. So that one didn't surprise me too much, but I thought it was funny that he's 108 and then Morel is also 108 because I think Morel is similarly a volatile in a different way, but like a
Yeah.
volatile like guy to project offensively.
Well, and
But
how about Bush being 111?
I love it. I love it because it's fun. I'm glad that it's a little bit bullish. I do wonder how much it factors in like his numbers in the PCL and
Right.
how that translates here and all those good things. But I love that they got our boy Matt Mervis too as above average league production there to 106 WRC plus. That would
Good.
be fantastic.
It's
But
better than Dansby.
yeah, which is nuts. They don't. They always disrespect Dansby. It's always gonna happen. But a 4-1 F4, I mean, that's kind of what you're signing up for every single year. I think Nico Horner's the biggest underslot here. I'd say 98 OPS plus. I think he's gonna be better than that. I think he's gonna start tapping into maybe a little bit more juice now. But the guy just has swung it well. He's played elite defense. Like I would take. I want to do like kind of the rest of the way. Would you take the over under? I would take the over on Nico Horner's 3.9 WAR any day of the week with the defense that he brings, and I think the offense just continuing to get better.
I would take the over because of how elite he is defensively. Now, on that 98 number, what do you think his OPS plus was last year?
Probably right there.
97. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of who he is. Before that, it was a 105. Before that, he was hurt. He only played
I
44
think he's going to
games.
be closer to 105 this year. I do.
I just, I almost view Nico Horner as what I dreamt Tommy Edman would turn into. Edman is a really good player.
Edmund hits the ball harder, but isn't as consistent. But he's also moved around way more, so it's like it's hard. Edmonds had to play short and second and center and wherever. So it's I think if they just stuck Edmund at second all the time, he'd probably put up similar defensive metrics and everything.
You think if Edman was a full-time second baseman, he would produce more WAR than Horner, or do you think Horner would still
I
have
mean,
him?
he got a crazy amount of WAR by playing shortstop. I just
I
think
know.
he'd be more like consistently I don't know. It's a tough one.
It's a
I
tough
don't
one.
know. He put up like a 5 WAR though, so I don't know if it would be that, but I think the offense might be a little bit more consistent.
Cubs and
I don't know.
Cardinals fans, who's better, Horner or Tommy Edman?
It's an interesting one. I would take Edmund just because of his ability, like all over and how
Mhm.
hard he hits the ball. But the one that stands out to me though is Suzuki because you talked about him like relative disappointment. We talked about these guys coming over. A lot of times it takes like that third season. We saw it with Hassan Kim, especially most recently. That third season, he really makes that leap. Say Suzuki took a step forward last year.
Oh yeah,
WRC plus jumps by like 10 points. I think the WAR jumped by, I think, a full win, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
And
full
then,
win.
okay, that's what I thought. And then you have all these other aspects to his underlying data looking better. And he got better. I think as the year went on, and then battled some injuries in the past. I think I would crush the over on 2.4 WAR because I think the defense has gotten a little bit better too. So I think Suzuki's going to blow this projection out of the water.
For sure. He bested his batting average from his rookie year to his second year by 23 points. It was a 21-point jump in OBP, and it was a 52-point jump in slug. He got better across the board in his slash line, and he's probably going to get better from his 842 OPS. That was already good. So fascinating. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? Shota Imanaga has a better projected ERA than Justin Steele. That's not fair. Imanaga projected 3.55 in 137 innings. Steele in 154 projected 3.64. Is Imanaga's fastball that much better than Steele's fastball?
Here's the problem. Well, first, yes, I think.
Oh,
Two,
wow.
Steele's fastball being a cut ride fastball. We're talking about that. We talked about it with Yariel, right? Where Stuff Plus kind of docks it. And again, I don't know if that's factored into this now at all with Stuff Plus being on Fangraphs and things like that. I think it's
Yeah.
separate, but I think a lot of these analytics and tracking systems for pitch value and things like that really underestimate Steele's fastball because again, it kind of doesn't really know how to properly assess the value of cut ride. But I don't know. I don't think it's outlandish because Imanaga's whiff rates on the heater are insane. The problem is, I think you're going to have a little bit of that Strider effect. Of course, he's not going to be as dominant as Strider with the swing and miss,
Yeah.
but you're going to have that effect of fastball plays great at the top of the zone. Control is good. Command can be a little bit shaky where sometimes, he'll miss over the middle and he's going to give up home runs. So, with home runs being given up, the ERA is probably going to be higher. I would take Steele because of the consistency. And really, if he didn't hit the wall at the end of the year, the after eclipsing the most innings he's really ever thrown, and went into the year with dead arm, so like that's pretty impressive what he did. I do think it's a little unfair to Steele, but I get it because the whiff is just going to be so much higher with Imanaga, and the fastball is just going to be a big whiff pitch.
Yeah. Cincinnati, Ellie De La Cruz.
This is the one I'm most excited for.
No, I've got one in Pittsburgh that is crazier. But Ellie's fascinating. They hate O'Neill Cruz. More on that in a moment. Ellie De La Cruz, 23 homers, more or less.
More
We're gonna go stop by stop. 23 homers more. I agree. 39 for 49 in the stolen base department.
more.
8 triples. I like that. That's a high number.
That's spot on.
8% walk rate.
I hope.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably take the under on that.
I take the under too. 31% K rate.
Spot on.
Spot on. 95 OPS plus.
No.
Over.
Way over.
This is the craziest one. What do you think his 50th percentile WAR is? His projected WAR?
Well, it sounds like it's not going to be very good.
2.2.
I was going to say 2.8. Holy crap. I get it because like you look at a lot of the concerning metrics, the whiff, the lack of walk, all that good stuff. But he plays fine defense. He's gonna hit a lot of home runs still. He's gonna accumulate, man. I'll crush that over. But they don't have 3 years of big league to work with, so it's a more unique situation.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to the ERA real quick. Yeah, here we go. Abbott, Green, Montas, Ashcraft, Lodolo. Who's got the best ERA out of those 5?
Lodolo.
No. He's got the highest. Ashcraft is the highest at 4.81. Lodolo's got 4.63.
Montes, you said, wait, who else? It was.
So you've got Abbott, Green, and Montas left.
I bet it likes green.
It likes green, 4-3-1. It also likes Montes at a 4-3-1. And then it's got Abbott at a 4-4-1.
You know, it's funny. I would take under on Montes and green. I wouldn't touch Abbott. I think that's pretty spot on.
That's spot on. Lodolo at 4-6.
I would take the under. It's all about health for him.
I'd take the under. 4-8 for Ashcraft. I think that's pretty disrespectful.
Yeah, it is, but I get he's weird. He's a weird one.
How about Connor Phillips? 115 innings, a projected 502.
I get it because he's so volatile and the
Yeah.
walk rates are high. And when you're using projection systems and the walk rates are high in trips, I assume that that's gonna go up to the big leagues. But I know it simulates a trillion outcomes. I guarantee that
Yeah.
there's a lot of outcomes where he's shoving because the stuff is outrageous. The fastball's plus plus. The breaking ball is disgusting and he manipulates it and he can overpower you. So if he's around the zone, he'll blow that out of the water. But I can
Yeah.
also understand command challenges. All of a sudden that ERA inflates quick.
Yeah. All right. Zips hates O'Neill Cruz, and I need to wrap my brain around this. I'm going to give you his 50th, his projected, and then I'm going to give you his 80th percentile. His projected WAR for this coming year is 2.1 and a 107 OPS plus, with 19 homers and 15 bags over the course of a full season. The 80th percentile is a 3.5 win player and a 128 OPS plus. O'Neill Cruz is so much better than I think the public understands. And I'm not just saying that because, like, hey, he was on that team that I called games for in 2022. Like, hey, he's a pirate. I'm not saying that. O'Neill Cruz, like, once he got rid of the breaking ball issue, as soon as he got up, this guy was turning in a K rate in the low 20s, if I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, it's interesting because I think it takes in that AAA struggle where it was cold and he didn't want to be. Let's talk about buy-ins.
Oh, he didn't want to be
He
there.
wasn't
Yeah.
bought
Like,
in
he
there.
would tell you. Yeah.
He would tell you himself, right? But it's I still think the breaking ball issues are a concern, and I think that's probably part of it. And then you look at so it's simulating off of a 102 WRC plus in 55 AAA games, and then in 2022, 87 big league games. He had a 105 WRC plus, but the defense didn't grade out great, so it was a 1-2 F4. So I get why it does that. I would take the over because I think he's supremely talented, and I think he's gonna rectify those issues that you talked about. But I do wonder, like his levers are so long, he does really struggle to he swings over a lot of breaking balls and he's very expansive with his approach because he has to swing earlier because he's so long and everything. But the thing is this is a guy that power wise is probably the only dude in the sport in terms of just raw EVs that can top Giancarlo Stanton.
Yes.
So and Giancarlo Stanton real issues with breaking balls, long levers, had to really figure out how he's just going to connect enough. He's going to strike out a ton. I think Giancarlo Stanton is honestly the comp here that you're going to look at. It's so different than Ellie Cruz. I know people like to say, oh, O'Neill and Ellie, they have some similar warts and they have some similar strengths. But I think with O'Neill, it's so much like all or nothing. And I don't know if you get as much of the defensive value as you're going to get with Ellie as he continues to develop. I think you're going to get more defensive value here potentially with Stanton. I also think you're going to get more whiff than Stanton. But I do think that's kind of the comp there. If it all works, like this is a guy that can hit 55 bombs, that
Right.
can do all that. So I think Stanton's what you're hoping for. But at the end of the day, Stanton wasn't a big WAR accumulator. But when it all worked, he still was.
The number that got to me was the counting numbers because this does project the course of a full season, and 19 homers and 15 bags over the
Yeah,
course of a
that
full
doesn't make
season.
sense to me because even if he's having a bad year, he's going to back into 30 bombs.
He's going to back into 30 and he's going to swipe 30 bases because he's one of the fastest guys in baseball. He,
Yeah.
Ellie, and Bobby Witt are probably the three fastest guys in baseball.
Yeah, it's funny. I was surprised how inefficient he was in AAA, and then again, he probably just didn't want to steal in AAA. And then in the big leagues, he was only 10 for 14, and you know how fast he is, you know how quick he can go. And I think with the new rules and everything, we didn't really get to see him do it in 2023. But to your point, we got a 9-game sample, and all of a sudden, it did look like he was hitting breaking balls better. And then he has this unfortunate injury. So I'm really fascinated because I think he could be a guy that he's just a perfect example of you can't really use the information you have because I could almost give a reason as to why each year or a lot of these different spots where you have the numbers, why the data could be somewhat, I wouldn't say invalid, but could
Yeah.
be a little skewed or could be less valuable for so many different reasons at each stop. So That's why I'm fascinated. I think this is one of the more impossible guys to project.
Yeah, I just had a wrong pipe situation in my water. That's why I went on mute for a minute. But wrapping up the NL Central with, or no, sorry, we have a couple more in the NL Central.
Well, I wanted to, sorry, real quick,
No,
to
yeah, you got one?
Brian Hayes, because I think Brian Hayes has become one of the more underrated players as well.
Yeah,
I'm opening it right. I didn't see where they have him on Zips. Okay, they've got him. Where do they have him F4 wise? Or sorry, yeah, F4 wise. Where do they have him?
I thought it was right around 3.
See, I
I'll
think
pull it
that's
up.
insane.
Yeah,
He's I look, I don't know how he's gonna hit. It was 2.6. The guy could hit 200. I think he could slash 200, 300, 350, and he'd still beat a 2.6 F4 off the glove alone. Um, look, I'm waiting for him to hit the ball in the air. I'm dying for it. I think we all are, and he's working towards that. But he hits the ball hard. We saw as he started to hit the ball in the air a little bit more and cut down the strike rate a little bit. It was never egregious, but got it under 20%. That all of a sudden, first year where his offense was slightly above league average. Emphasis on slightly. It was a 101 WRC plus, but we're talking about a wizard with the glove. I mean, this is a guy that could probably play shortstop. He's so good with it. So I just think that's such a low number when you talk about like the percentile outcomes, because he had an 87 WRC plus in 2022, which he'll never be that. I don't think he'll ever be offensively, that bad again. It was a
yeah,
244, 314, 345 slash line. He was a 3-win player that year. And that was in 136 games. So I just feel like it's almost a guarantee that he's a 3-win player this coming season. Like I feel like 2.9, 2.8 is like his 20th percentile outcome, not his median. So I think it's a little bit of a slight on Ke'Bryan, who again is it's been a slow burn, but has been getting better offensively. He's entering his age 27 season. And as he continues to just drive the ball in the air, and he hits the ball hard. So as he continues to drive the ball in the air more consistently, which again last year was a big step in that direction for him, and walks a little bit more, I think he could easily be a 5-win player with the defense that he provides, and a little bit of added value on the basis. So that's one of the guys I'm most fascinated to watch, but I do think it's a little bit of an undersell when you see like those projections. And because I know we look at the last couple of years. I think if you look at the last couple of years, you have to feel like 2.8 is almost the floor, not
correct.
the median outcome.
Correct. And we've talked about this before, but Charrington, when he did extend Ke'Bryan Hayes, he was asked, he's like, simply put, why does this make sense, for a guy that really hasn't shown much offensively? And he said, like, we know the defense is going to pay for the deal. Like, it wasn't
Yes.
20 to $25 million. The defense is going to pay for 8 years at 70 million for Ke'Bryan Hayes. The offense is just gravy at that point. And that's the type of extension the Pittsburgh Pirates can do. I saw this note a couple days ago in regards to Matt Chapman, and I came away with it more impressed with Ke'Bryan Hayes. Since the start of the 2017 season, when Chapman debuted, nobody has more DRS at third base than Matt Chapman. Chapman has 92 defensive runs saved since the start of 2017. That's the last 7 seasons. Arenado's at 91. Behind those two is Ke'Bryan Hayes at 65 in 4 years. So you go by defensive runs saved per year. If you were to just divide by the number of years, Ke'Bryan Hayes is beating Matt Chapman by like 3 defensive runs saved a year. It's like 16 compared to 13. And the drop off to me is astounding. Since the start of 17, Matt Chapman in 7 years has 92. Arenado in 7 years has 91. Hayes in 4 years has 65. McMahon in 7 years, Ryan McMahon with Colorado, has 63. After that, Austin Riley has 22. It's
Which is
clump,
crazy.
right? Like it's a block, and then everybody else. Austin Riley, by the way, Gunnar Henderson has 13 defensive runs saved already. And I don't happen to see Rafael Devers on this list, but I see Riley at 22.
Devers is going to be quite negative there, I think. But no, it's interesting. Like again, I know third base is a big offensive position, but again, I think he could legitimately hit terribly, and
Yeah.
and I don't think he will, and still give you better than a 2.6 WAR. So I'm excited. I think whatever Fangraph spits out for the Pirates projections this year in terms of like win totals, I think I'll take the over on, because just when I look at it in each individual player, almost every single one, I think I would take the over on.
So if Endy Rodriguez was healthy and you had Henry Davis in right field, I'd have no problem saying over. I just worry about that third outfield spot with Henry Davis playing every day behind the plate.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they, what they'll do in terms of like bringing some guys up from the minors that might get an audition out there. Like they have a lot of different interesting guys at AAA who, could get looks in the outfield and see how the bat, continues to play. But
Yeah.
Triolo is a guy, like I don't know where he's going to fit in. He's a great defender in the infield,
Right.
but that's a guy that's the bat was solid when he was up there. I wonder where they can kind of slot him in too. And I think the projections honestly were very favorable to him, given considering that he doesn't come with, a ton of background and fanfare and things like that. But I would say his 80th percentile WAR, I think he has a really good chance of achieving. It was like 2.4. I think he could easily be a 2-3 win player this coming season.
Absolutely. A couple more notes on the National League Central. The Cardinals. It's at third base one again. Nolan Arenado is a projected 3.5 win player, 3.4 F-WAR. He was at 2.6 last year. It was a really disappointing year for Arenado, but he has not been as low as 3.4 since he was 23 years old in 2014. So with
Besides
all
last
that,
year,
besides last year, and it would be back-to-back years. So I ask you, like, with all that being said, is this the beginning of the end for Nolan Arenado? Are we seeing the decline of one of the best players of our generation? We're going to look at this, and he's going to be, I truly believe, a first ballot Hall of Famer when it's all said and done, because I think he plays for 4 more years. And of course, he's a 2-win player or better the next 4 years. But is he a 2-win player? Are we entering a new frontier with Nolan Arenado?
I'm not comfortable. I think it's a great question. I'm not comfortable answering it until the first half of 2024
Yeah.
because he has earned the benefit of the doubt. He's still 32. I think he could have been banged up last year. Talk about, frustrating situation over there too. And Arenado spoke up and said, "We need more leadership in this clubhouse." They go get Matt Carpenter, right? Like, but for a reason. I mean, they didn't need him offense. I don't even know where he fits in, to be honest. I'm so shocked.
Coaching
It was
staff. Yeah.
big league deal, right? It was a big league
Right.
deal. I,
Yes.
I don't know what they're going to do there. But the point being, I think that you're going to see a different Arenado. I'm going to say no. I think he's going to be better this year. But I could understand why there might be concern about this being the beginning of the decline here. But at 32, with what he is able to do, just almost low effort at third base, like he's going to be better than he was, I think, in almost every single facet next year. So I'm not totally comfortable answering it, but I'll bet on this guy any day of the week.
Yeah, I will say, God, I hope we're not at that conversation just yet, because I would turn into that like sad, pensive Vince McMahon meme where it's like he was special and like holding
Yeah.
back tears. And
Yeah.
like
He
it's
was playing third base growing up, man, like, and playing third base even through high school. Like, that's who I watched. It was rolling when I was really young, but then, really as I started to take pride in footwork and defense and being able to throw from different angles. And again, like defense for me, like I couldn't hit the ball that hard. So I just fell in love with the aspects of defense that I could make as good as possible. All I watched was Nolan Arenado clips during class. Like all I watched was what he did. And then when I would go to practice after class, after math class, I try to emulate those things, chopping the feet, going in, throwing on the run, all like that guy. Like that'll be another one. I talked about Miggy Arenado. Once that decline happens, hopefully 5 years from now,
Mhm.
that'll be a gut punch.
Yeah, as a left-handed pitcher only throughout my entire high school career, it was Arenado and Andrelton Simmons highlights that I always watched.
And
So,
Mark Burley.
and Mark Burley, of course. All right, last one of the National League Central. Top 6 hitters by projected WAR with the Milwaukee Brewers. Zips loves Willie Adames. I do too. They have him at 28 bombs and a 3.9 WAR. I like that. I think it's bounce back. It's walkier. He's going to be good. William Contreras at a 3.1, which would be 2 wins shy of where he was, which didn't sound right.
Yeah, and we know that these are always conservative too, right?
For
But yeah,
sure. For sure. But yeah, Adames at 3.9, William Contreras at 3.1, Sal Frelick at 1.8 is the third highest. And then you've got 3 guys at 1.7. Tyler Black, Jackson Chorio, and Christian Yelich. Weimer's a projected 0.6.
he's so good defensively. First of all, you just reminded me, Brewers fans, if you guys got to this part of the podcast, just had one of my favorite interviews we've had in a while on the call up, talking to Brewers hitting coordinator Brenton Del Chiaro. he was unbelievable. And we didn't just talk about Brewers prospects. We talked about Frelick. We talked about Weimer. We talked about how like everyone, if you've noticed the Brewers system from top to bottom, they got a lot of guys that swing unusually, and their motto is UBU. And it was really cool to hear him talk about how they work with each of those players individually to get the most out of what they're doing without, losing sight of the common goals that they have with all of their hitters. But anyway, back to the larger point, he talked about Weimer and some of the things he's been working on, and he's bought in on what Weimer's going to do this year. So I would crush that over on Weimer, especially with the defense. But I get the concern with Yelich. Like there are some, he's kind of in the Bellinger boat of like, yes, it was great to see him come back, but some of the batted ball data is concerning. And I just feel like he's like a back tweak away from kind of going back down into that struggle again. I hope
He's
not,
always
because
a
again,
back tweak away.
that's a player that I again loved watching come up, and as a Marlins fan, and again, he was my grandpa's favorite. My dad, like, it's just the pure lefty swing. So I hope he beats that. But I love the Tyler Black love, because that guy, you've seen him. I mean, this is a dude that I think could be a dark horse. It's going to be hard to beat some of these rookie years.
How about his teammate? How about his teammate
Yeah.
Chorio? You can't beat
That's
Chorio.
the problem. But when I say like dark horse, I mean like a guy that could be a top 5, finisher. And I don't think anybody would put him there when you rank your 5 guys. Black can do a lot of things. The defense is the one issue, but he can run, he can hit for power. He walks a ton. I love the Black projection because I think he needs to be playing for them too. We talked about it in the Brewers episode. He needs to be up there. Throw him at first. I think he could be a big contributor for them.
Zips loves Corbin Carroll, understandably so. They don't 6-win love him. They 4.6 win love him, which is still on the higher end.
A projection system that's pretty insane.
Right. After 1 year, 4.5 win player for Corbin Carroll. Trey Turner is at 4.8. So we're talking about this guy like in the same breath as a Trey Turner, who is a top 10 player in baseball. Carroll is at 4.6. And while it loves Carroll, it loves Gabby Moreno. 2.8 win player, a 103 OPS plus. Those are both drastic bumps from where he was. Obviously, you love Moreno. Everybody on God's green earth loves Moreno after that postseason run. But to see it in writing, to see it in an algorithm, almost made it more real for me.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, and it's in the second half, he's one of the best catchers in the sport. But yeah, it's cool to see the projection system because, again, he had some I would say acclimation time when it came to first coming up with the Jays, and then the beginning with the D-backs as well. And so you'd think maybe the system would dock that, and it didn't. I also think that the projections on Lawler very, very bullish. Again, because we're relatively applying this 2.4 on Lawler as well. Like it likes him. So I think that's really exciting when you look across the board, because if they're getting that kind of production, and even Alec Thomas, I think it's buying on what Alec Thomas kind of did down the stretch of the year. And then my favorite thing, because we talked to Diamondbacks top prospects at the end of the 23 season or in the middle of the 23 season, we got to do the updated for 24. But I think the most underrated prospect in that system is Jorge Barosa.
Yeah. And
they came out here and gave Jorge, and no one even probably knows who that is. He's a little 5'7" guy, switch hitter, just scrappy as hell, really good. 1.8 WAR for a guy that's not ranked in the top 10 in their system anywhere, I think, other than us. I might have him in the top 10. I will have him in the top 10 when we update that ranking, actually.
But he slaps the ball around and he plays like a very high level defense and he's multiple spots if need be.
Pop. Yeah. I think Barosa could overtake Jake McCarthy. And what's funny is Zip seems to think that too.
Cool. I'm in. All right. Trivia question. Don't look. Don't scroll. Who has a lower projected ERA next year? They're both projected right around 150 innings. Brandon Pfaadt or Merrill Kelly?
It should be Merrill Kelly.
It's a trick question. They're both at 397. 397 and 150 innings. 397, I think, is bullish on Pfaadt. Based on what he did last year.
Acknowledging that it's almost always going to be like 20 to 30% conservative in terms of like, what's reasonably expected. Yeah, that's really bullish on Pfaadt. We're talking about some other young arms that are really talented that even showed some good things last year and were well over 4 projection-wise.
Like AJ Smith-Shawver's at a 4.5 and Pfaadt's at a 3.9.
Abbott's a 4.6. I know he finished there last year, but he had stretches where he was phenomenal and like was pretty bad.
Hunter Green's a 4.3. Like, it's crazy.
But I agree with it. Like Pfaadt, the stuff is crazy. We'd been talking about it for so long, and I looked like a bozo up until like the playoffs, but it's there.
Man, yeah, it's just crazy and super disrespectful to Merrill Kelly to have him at 397.
Yeah, well, because he's just been doing it for so long. That's a guy, like, again, we're acknowledging that the systems are always going to be, a little bearish, but that's a guy that, like, come on, he's just doing it every year at this point. And he did it in the postseason. And it's just, I feel very confident that he's a mid threes guy pretty much any year.
They're waiting on him to regress. The Rockies, one note, Nolan Jones is a 3.1 projected win player, 50th
That's
percentile.
crazy. That is
20,
crazy.
I know, 22 homers, 84 driven in. This guy can go off, man. He played, what, 105 games ish, and he had 20 homers and 20 bags.
Yeah.
I mean, who's to
And if
say
the
he
defense
can't?
comes along, like he's now finally playing one spot, focusing on that. He's a
Right.
good athlete. He was a hockey player in high school. Like he moves all right. It's just he was trying to get right at third. He's a big dude, so it was kind of hard. The actions weren't great. He was fine though, but it was kind of going back and forth. Now focusing on the outfield. All these guys get crushed defensively at cores, but if he can just be passable there, I mean, he's going to hit out there. So that's probably one of the most bullish that we've seen of any of these projections.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Nolan Jones this year. From a strictly counting number perspective, is the defense like you mentioned? Hey, he can focus on one spot. I don't know if it's good enough defense to propel him to a 5-win season, but 22 and 84 seems somewhat conservative, like in that ballpark. We saw what this guy can do across 108 games. Like, give him 140 in right field, assuming full
That's it.
health. He can hit 35 homers,
Yep. I
maybe
totally agree.
more.
And then shout out, I love them giving almost a full win season to a friend of the call up, Jimmy Herron, a
Yeah,
guy that, I really hope he gets an opportunity, man. Great human being. Has put up really good numbers, had a great year. I know Albuquerque's a great place to hit, but this guy deserves a shot. So I love Zips giving Jimmy Herron some love too.
100%. They heaped love and love and love onto Fernando Tatis Jr. And I love that it did this. Fernando Tatis, I think the narrative has curbed some people on him. He's one of the best players in baseball. If I was putting together a top 5 talents in baseball, he's absolutely top 5. I do think. I think it's Otani, Acuna, Mookie,
Emphasis on talents. You're not
emphasis on
saying best
talent.
player, like in terms of what you're getting just yet, but
Right.
if it all clicks.
And I mean, dude, like he won the platinum glove last
So
year in the National League.
I was just talking about this with Ben Bellotti, our YouTube manager, and so much more than that. He's down here with me, so we're getting ready for Jeff Conine's charity golf tournament on Monday.
Yep.
But we were talking about it because I'm looking at the Tatis, and I'm like, we were talking about what he did in terms of award accumulation, last year. He didn't hit to his standards because he had a lot going on. Obviously, coming off of a big layoff, coming off of a
A
wrist that
wrist.
very, very messed up. I wouldn't be shocked if that wrist was completely shattered, considering how long it took him to get right and considering how the accident happened. So I'm imagining, like, with that defensive value, because he only had what, a 112 WRC plus last year?
I think so.
Like, we've seen him at 160, right? We've seen him hover around through stretches, almost flirting with 200. If he's at 160 again this year, in terms of getting back to that offensively with platinum glove defense, because before, remember, a lot of those WAR totals were with him at shortstop. Now you got him in the corner outfield, where he's one of the best defenders in the sport. Talk about another guy that could flirt with an 8-9 win season if he hits the way that we've seen him hit in the past. I'm going to be sprinkling on him for MVP this coming year, because I do think the market probably is, as you mentioned, public perception. I do think the market might even be cooling on him a little bit.
So Tatis had a 158 WRC plus in 2021. He punched out 28% of the time, and he had a 7.5 WAR, 7.3. He lowered the K rate by 6% from 2021 to 2023. So you're giving me a guy that was flirting with 30-30 in a down year, had a 22% K rate, a 113 WRC plus, and still produced a 4.5 win season. Tatis, his projections right now, 36 homers, 101 driven in, 26 for 30 in the stolen base department, high efficiency, a 142 OPS plus, and a 5.5 win season. 80th percentile outcome, 7.5 win season. 20th percentile outcome, a 3.8 WAR season.
I think it's pretty fair.
He's so ridiculously good, and I hope nobody forgets it.
I think he's in the short list of maybe 3 players. If you told me who are the 3 guys that you would think have a chance at 10 war this coming year, like just any reasonable chance, right? Like,
Yeah,
more than a 1% chance, I would take Tatis pretty much right there. Then probably Otani can't because he's not pitching. So I'd take
right.
Tatis, Judge, and then
Acuna.
Acuna. Yeah,
I think I would probably go Acuna, Judge, Tatis,
that's probably how
and
I'd
we're leaving Betts out. Betts is like a
moving to
close
second
four.
base. He's slowing down a tad in terms of like I think the impact that he's going to make defensively, and you got to make an impact defensively.
Yeah,
And that's the challenging part for Acuna.
couple more. Jung Hoo Lee projected the most valuable hitter on the Giants roster at two and a
Wow.
half wins. Pat Bailey right behind him at 2.4. It feels a little low for Pat Bailey and maybe for Lee if he is like truly
I think it's
really good in
reasonable
center.
for Lee, just considering again, like where
Lack of impact.
yeah, and just waiting to see what it all looks like, and coming off of an injury of his own too with the ankle. So and just knowing the acclimation process for some of these guys, especially from the KBO. But
And Webb may be like the new Gosman. 4.4 projected WAR for Logan Webb.
oh, he's 100% going to be the favorite in these systems, and for good reason. I
Yeah.
mean, the guy's just consistent as hell. Uh, that shows you kind of where the Giants are at, though, in terms of like offensively. They should just go get Bellinger maybe, and just
Yes.
put Lee in left. Like Lee can play. The more I think about him, like Lee can play center field. He has the talent to be a really good one, but I have some concerns of how consistently he's going to be great out there. Just slide him over.
Just do
Um,
the Quan thing. Take a good center fielder, put him in left, make him great, and have him win a Gold Glove.
if they really want to do it like this, the Zips was eye opening when you're looking at the position players and you're just like, okay. Whereas I'm like so many times I'm like over. Here I'm like pretty good over. Yeah, the rest looks pretty good. Like it's a little concerning from that regard.
Yeah. Last one, just how good are the Dodgers going to be? I've got some offensive numbers for you, and I've got some defensive numbers for you. Offensively, Freddie Freeman's a projected 25 homers and 94 driven in. James Outman projected 23 homers. I love it.
Love it.
Will Smith projected 21. Teoscar Hernandez, a projected 30 homers and 107 driven in.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
They must love EVs. But you know what? And I know they're not factoring in like the Dodger magic. Uh this he is the perfect Dodger magic candidate. I love it. That is crazy bullish for a guy that was
30.
not great last year.
But not great was, I think, 26 homers and like 95 driven in. So
Yeah,
they
he's gonna get his
bank on run
numbers.
production. Yeah, he's going to get his numbers, and that's what they're predicting. 30 and 107, 31 and 100 for Mookie Betts. They've got Shohei Otani, the full-time DH, at 38 homers and 122 driven in.
Which is again conservative. Which
Yes.
is when that's the conservative estimate, like screw you. You're just way too good.
So stupid. All right, 4 names that I'm going to give you in the starting rotation. You tell me the projected ERA. Tyler Glasnow.
Now knowing that they always shoot higher, 3.68.
3.43 in 118 innings. They're
Wow,
projecting.
yeah.
Yeah, it's bad, man. 118 innings, but a 3.43. Bobby Miller.
Oh, they probably jacked him up. I would say a 4.18.
3.74.
Ooh, they're respecting Bobby. Love it.
Walker Bueller.
I don't know how they factor injuries and stuff. They better do my guy right. I'll say 3.8.
3.56.
Love that. Attaboy Zips.
Yoshinobu Yamamoto inning total. What do you think it's projected at?
170.
171.
Bang.
Good.
Nice.
And ERA.
3.4.
3.52.
Ooh, that's
Close.
bullish.
It is bullish. 171 innings and 3.52 for Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Sign me up for it, man. This was fun. We're going to do American League on Wednesday. Peter will be back for that one. Yeah.
you didn't want to do another hour of now the player comparisons. I'm looking at Ahmed Rosario. I know he's not with them anymore, but
Yeah.
Ahmed Rosario's season hit comp looking like Mark Grzelcyk.
Ooh, who
Uh,
was in the Marlins booth for it? No, Todd Hollinsworth was in the
Not
Marlins
Hollingsworth,
booth.
but they're in the same they're in the
They're
same bucket of players for
they're
me.
all they're all fever dream late 2000s Chicago Cubs like
Oh
Gredzalonic,
man.
Mike Fontenot, Ryan Terrio.
If you just want to have the fun time of like random baseball player names, like the guy thing that we all do,
Go
just
on
go
these
through the
zips.
Zips player comparisons. It's absolutely hilarious.
It's so much fun. All right, go watch some football, man. We just recorded on Sunday afternoon. Enjoy
Yep.
your time in Florida with our guy Ben Bellotti. Massive thank you to Ben as always for doing our video stuff, being a mastermind behind the video
Yeah,
and
follow him on
YouTube.
Twitter. He wants some love on Twitter these days, and
He's putting good shit out.
he does. He's in the shadows. He doesn't get to be on camera, but I know he puts some good stuff out, and he always jokes. He's like, I'm gonna like insert like my at one of these days, get some people to follow me on Twitter. But nice guy, huge quads, awesome dude. Sells mounds on this like that's all the other thing he like. Cool
Yeah.
guy. Shout out Ben Velati.
I'm gonna link his Twitter in the episode description. All right, guys. We'll talk to you Wednesday.